So we've got part 2 of the build, and what I've done now is I've actually mounted the Naze board, and I've put on the little red standoffs here, and all the motor mounts are actually on, but everything's still loose as far as the tilt belt is concerned. So you can see here we've got this one that actually slides backwards and forwards, this one's up and down, this one's up and down. Now what I've done here is I've mounted my Naze board, and I've used the smallest standoffs I could possibly use there to get it down low enough. I could probably use just a couple of washers there underneath there, some of those little fibre washers to stand it off, but we'll see how we go. One is for your USB to be accessible, and two, the drive belt runs over the top here, so it actually clears all the pinouts. So it's well thought of and well thought out. So that's what we've done now. I've mounted the servo. Now what the manual says is that you should not run the power off the board. So what I've done here is I've split the cable, so the signal cable will go to the board obviously, and the power cable section of it will go straight onto the distribution board. So the way that it's wired, and we got Naze, this is number 1 motor, 2, 3 and 4, and here's our pinouts here. So we've got motor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So the servo goes to number 1, nothing on number 2, and then you've got motor 1, 2, 3 and 4. So working backwards, 4, 3, 2, 1, nothing, and the tilt servo. We'll now move over and we'll have a look at our power distribution board. So you can see here my power distribution board. It's been heavily modified by me and from the standard. So a couple of the mods that I've done is I've put all the filter systems on. Now they recommend that you don't need to put them all on, but I put them all on anyway. I've put all my pinouts on, and what I've done is I've actually added these tails here for the motors, where the motors are supposed to solder straight onto here. So I've used the pins so that I can interchange, purely for the fact that my motors wires weren't long enough to reach down to here. So that's what I did. Now what I've done is I've actually put my ESCs underneath, and they're modified Turnigy Plush 18 amps. Okay, so they are mounted underneath, so that'll be raised up slightly. Okay, so that means I've got to be careful about how my tilt belt runs over the top there. So all the filter systems on, you get these little power reducers here with the kit, and there's a tiny, I don't know whether you can see it in there, but there's a tiny little pot that you adjust with your screwdriver. So what you need to do is power it up, put a meter on the other side of it and wind that up and down until you get your 12 volt and your 5 volt, so you can see there. Now be very careful with the pinouts. Have a good read of the diagram that's supplied, because you'll notice that power goes one way and power goes the other way. I've just put a set of temporary bullets on it to test it. So I went through and did the continuity test. That is just with a buzzer to make sure that nothing was shorted anywhere, and they all were connected and everything was cool. So basically that is my power distribution board. Now we'll have a look at how the power distribution board actually sits on the machine itself. That's where it sits, and of course what will happen is these will run around. These wires here will run around onto the Naze board. These wires will run around onto the Naze board here. This guy here will pick up the 5 volt power off the distribution board here. The signal cable will go onto motor 1. And then basically that'll be it. So these will be modified and stuck down there and wired in nicely. These will obviously be shortened So that needs to go down low enough to be able to clear the belt. Even thinking of putting in one of those little pigtails to the USB and having it out the back here. So if I need to do any programming rather than trying to get in underneath there, I'll just have an extension out the back. So basically that's where we are. I'll show you the motors. Now these are the baby beast motors that I'll be using. So technically that will be sitting there. That is up the right way. And if you have a look and see which way that is, those leads would probably reach there. Mind you, it's got to be set around the right way. It's got to sit that way. So you would probably get away with that. But on the back, where the distance from the power distribution board to the motor is a lot longer than the power distribution board to the motor on the front, I would not have got that across. So that looks a bit messy there, but we'll get that out the way. So what I intend to do here is to have my motors plugged in, and the beauty of this is I don't have to desolder if I've got my motors around the wrong way. My motors will plug in there like so. That will sit on there. That will be in a nice, in that nice ribbon shroud. That'll be set to there, and that will be free to tilt whichever way it wants to go. And if I get a motor wrong or blow a motor up, it's simply a matter of undoing that, undoing the bolts, change it over. This guy here, this distribution board, probably took me the better part of, I don't know, probably about 8 hours to knock up. And that's just me taking my time, making sure that I had everything right, getting the ESCs, working out how I wanted to mount my ESCs and how it was all going to fit, and then doing the soldering, and then getting all these little pigtails made up, and then getting this sorted, and then, you know, testing and making sure that I had everything right before I actually put power on. Because, you know, once you put power on and it smokes, you know, it's game over. So you're better off taking your time, making sure that everything is right. And still doesn't stop you being a little bit nervous when you go to power up, but it just ensures that you don't blow anything up. And I have actually tested this with the 4-cell battery and made sure it all works. We've got the right voltage there, so we're basically all good to go. So next video will be with the motors on and our commissioning.